Welcome back in. It's the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. Dustin Hawkinsmith here, joined on this edition by Hunter Wallace from Keystone Caliber. First time in a few weeks for you, Hunter. We're looking at some of the bigger surprises in the early part of the 2021-2022 season across District 3, AA and AAA. So we've got some names to know, I think about 9 in all, kind of share what they've done so far and maybe what it means in the scope of District 3 as we hit roughly the halfway point. We start thinking about the postseason a little bit. But Hunter, welcome back. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on these guys.
Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, it's good to be back. Out for a couple weeks. Both of us were kind of sick and had to do some other things. But yeah, it's good to be back. Excited to talk some wrestling. It was definitely a fun, exciting December, early January season that we had going on. So.
And, you know, you and I both have our stuff and we're in and out of the podcast lineup, just like guys are in and out of every lineup across the district now. Like, it's pretty wild how things are playing out and guys missing time and teams shutting down and all that. That's probably a different conversation for a different day, but let's focus on the good things right now and work our way up. This is kind of in weight order. You shared a few names. I shared a couple names and we put them together. Starting with Travis Claussen, sophomore, 113 from Penn Manor. This kid was 7-7 last year. He's already doubled his win output. He's 14-2 now as a sophomore. He's up at 113 pounds. The losses came to a district champion in Susquehanna's Mason McClendon and a state medalist in Mifflin County's Nick Allison. Also a good win over Marco Tassi from Warwick. So pretty nice little resume that Travis is putting together. And you can clearly see some improvement from where he was as a 106 as a freshman to now where he is as a 113. And, you know, looking pretty good at that weight. And I would think probably a contender to hit the podium at districts and to reach the state tournament.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Travis last year was, like you said, he was 106, but he wasn't a full 106. I thought he was pretty undersized. So before the season, I kind of expected him to be at 106 again. And he was kind of in the wall room in and out. And, you know, he wasn't weight. He was not very heavy but he looks like a full 113. It looks like he grew some more. He, like you said, he beat Marco Tassi and, you know, two losses to some pretty premium kids in our state. But another stat with him that stands out, 13 of his 14 wins were bonus points. So, you know, he's getting it done with like scoring points and getting pins, you know, helping his team out any way he can also. So that's something that stands out with him also. You know, he was not in my regional rankings before the season started at 113, and you know, he's just slowly been plugging away, getting some wins over some key guys, and I think he's looked very promising in December, early January.
I was looking back through at 106, especially at that section last year. You had Travis Claussen, I think Jordan Williams from Hempfield. You had Liam Flanagan from Central Dauphin. Tassi was there. And, you know, it was one of those sections. And there was a bunch of different weights at a bunch of different sections where last year's format really hurt some kids being able to move on or not. But that group from that 106-pound bracket in that section, you know, it's part of a group that I would say is a rising group, and Claussen's one of them. You know, going up to 113. It's interesting with him growing into that weight. You can never predict when a kid's going to hit a growth spurt, when he's going to get a little bit bigger, and trying to figure out what to do with that. You know, sounds like a kid in his position last year. A lot of times we'll end up back at 106, but that little bit of growth has taken him to 113, and you can't really argue with the results so far.
Yeah, no, you definitely can't. And like you said, with that 106 bracket last year, like we talk about kids like Travis and Marco and Liam Flanagan and Jordan Williams and all those kids in there, and they kind of just like fell under the shadow a little bit postseason last year just because of the two guys that got to qualify in front of them in a state champion Caden Williams and a state fourth in Dominic Flatt. So like that's just that was a loaded section, especially when you get to look at it this year. Those kids get another, you know, go at 106 or 113, and most of them I have them in like the state rankings in the top 20. So it's kind of cool to see now how that section looked last year and how all those kids are doing this year.
Well, it's nice in all kinds of ways to return to some normalcy in that section tournament, the output and getting these guys a chance to move on and get a shot In these cases, to reach the district tournament at those weight classes, you have them in your top 20 in a lot of cases. These are legitimate contenders to reach states. How about Keaton Fisher from Conestoga Valley, the senior at 145? Big win over Reagan Lefevre this week. Also a good win over Caden Rouser from Waynesboro. His 2 losses so far to Cobin Carper, who we'll touch on a little bit, looks much improved from Boiling Springs, and Cale Markle from Saucon Valley. But Keem Fisher has been one of the bigger surprises in that, I didn't know a whole lot about this kid, certainly before the season began, before the win over Caden Rouser. And then the win over Lefevre was a big time attention getter.
Yeah, it definitely was. His wins, I mean, over Reagan, that one obviously stood out the most. But kind of other ones, like you said, he had a win over Caden Rouser. He also has 2 wins over Carter Davis from Central York, who looks very polished and very improved. He has a win over Mason Lashock, Line Mountain, who I have ranked pretty high in the state. And he has a win over Gino Serafani from Central Mountain, who is a regional qualifier. So he has some very good wins. And like you said, 2 losses to Cobin Carper at Boiling Springs and Cale Markle at Saucon Valley. 2 kids I have ranked top 5 in the state. But he looks very powerful. He looks very strong. He looks very comfortable at this weight class. He kind of has a confidence you can see when he wrestles that he didn't have before. I don't want to say he wasn't confident before, but you can tell like he thinks he's the best now. Like just the way that he wrestles, he thinks he can beat anybody. He just goes out and attacks is what I mean. And, like you said, he's 14-2. He's having a very good year. And Conestoga Valley, as a team also, they're looking pretty good, I think, too. So, yeah, he was definitely one to mention.
In the process of trying to look at that 145-pound weight class and figure out, where guys are going to slot in rankings and stuff like that moving forward, he's a weight class wrecker right now in a really positive way. How about Devin Ponce from Biglerville? He's a junior at 126. He's 18-2 now. He was 14-6 last year. The pin over Brennan Schissler, I think, would be the moment for him, just like the win over Lefevre was for Keaton Fisher. 2 losses. One was Carl Schinderdecker at Trojan Wars. He fought back and he ended up, on the podium there with a lot of AAA teams, a lot of out-of-state teams. So a nice little start there for Devin in that Biglerville lineup, which I think, from top to bottom, a little bit of a pleasant surprise for the Canners.
Yeah, Biglerville's putting out a pretty decent product as a team, especially, you don't have Levi Haynes who opted out. So you didn't really know who in that lineup was really going to make a splash. And, Devin's been a pleasant surprise. Like you said, he's 18-2, big win over Brennan Schissler, who was a state blood rounder last year, or super regional blood rounder, whatever you want to call it. He has 12 pins. It looks like he's been pinning a lot of kids. I actually haven't gotten to watch him wrestle yet, but I'm very excited to get to watch him wrestle because, he's putting some results out that are, have some very positive outcomes.
Yeah, and kind of emerged from relative obscurity now, making a big year 3 leap, going from a sophomore to a junior. How about Ethan Miller too? This is a kid. I'm curious your thoughts on him because and I don't know what his intentions are too. And by that I mean we've seen him at both 215 and 285. My suspicion is we'll see him at 285 for the postseason, but he was a 3rd placer at Top Hat to start the year. He was a 3rd placer at King of the Mountain the week after that. He's got wins over Hunter Bisking from Dallastown, Logan Herbst from Spring Grove, Robert Utz from Southwestern, at both of those weight classes. So I think, if he does land at 285, he's one of probably few guys that I would give a shot to crack that Leighton Schmick, Trevor Gallagher 1-2 punch at that weight class. So he'll be an interesting guy to watch, long and lean, and could pose a problem. But you're looking at 2 guys at that 285 weight class, if he does go there, who are pretty legit heavyweights.
Yeah, Ethan is the definition. He's a beast, man. He, when you have a kid that can wrestle 215 and then bump up and wrestle kids, not only wrestle heavyweights, but wrestle full heavyweights that are all of 285 and win against good ones. Central York, they're looking pretty good as a team, and to have a kid like that you can plug in at some different weights up top, that's huge right now. But yeah, Ethan looks very strong. Like he's wrestling up in weight when he wrestles heavyweight. But he looks very strong. He's very dominant against some of these bigger kids. When you place anything at King of the Mountain, that speaks volumes. But he took third, lost a close one, I guess, against was it Wilson Spires, General McLean, who I have ranked pretty high in the state AAA, and who had a close match with Charles Cruz from Williamsport, who I have top 4. So he's right there in that mix right now for me at heavyweight. Obviously at heavyweight you can go anyway, but with a kid with that length and that strength, and he's just such an athlete. He's going to win a lot. He's going to continue to win. And like you said, I'm not sure if Coach Albright's plan for him is to stay at heavyweight or to go to 215. But, regardless of where he ends up, I think he's going to make some noise at either weight class.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit of a mismatch at both. To be the lighter, leaner guy, the more athletic guy can help you at heavyweight. But if he does, come down a little bit to 215, that would make him, pretty big at that weight too. And honestly, you see a lot of these decisions, especially when it comes to light heavyweights who could go down or could go up. You see those sometimes come down to the wire a little bit, and trying to figure out where he feels the best and what the competition is like. They might not even have that determination made at this point in time, but he's definitely shown, that even though he's been undersized, your point, if you've shown to this point that you can hang with legitimate 285 guys, that's got to influence your decision one way or the other. To have a little bit of evidence that suggests you can hang with district caliber 285 guys.
Oh yeah, it has to. Like I said, being that athletic at heavyweight is such an advantage, and when you know how to wrestle and you're strong and you're long, like it's just everything. He's an all-around kind of heavyweight. So,
how about I wanted to look at the freshman here. This was a guy you mentioned from Schuylkill Valley, Ian Vitallo. Wrestling 132, he's 12-3, and the thing that really jumps out to me about him is the number of quality matches he's gotten, even the ones that he's lost. So you look at Scott Johnson, the state runner-up from Muncie, Connor Nicholas from Saucon Valley, Bethlehem Catholic's George Pavis. Those are the 3 losses, and it's like if a freshman can battle and hang in there and pick up that kind of experience, I think he's got a pretty good shot at turning that corner and really emerging as somebody to know in that 132-pound weight class, which is, at this point pretty open to competition there.
It absolutely is. And Ian, I got to talk with Coach Jeremy Smith of Schuylkill Valley. And he kind of talked about Ian and said, he's been looking really good. He's been a pleasant surprise. He actually did not get to wrestle last year in 8th grade because of COVID and some issues there. And then in 7th grade, his results, weren't standout. He didn't place at the Wilson Junior High tournament, and so he wasn't really on my radar to come in and shake things up right away. But he's been a very pleasant surprise, and he's another one I haven't gotten to witness wrestle yet. But yeah, his results are speaking for themselves. He has a great record, 12-3, and the one that stood out to me was that close loss to Connor Nichols of Saucon Valley, who I think's in the mix right now to qualify for states. A solid piece in that incredible Saucon Valley lineup. So, if you're hanging with kids like that after a season off as a freshman, that's a big deal. And we talk about practice partners a lot, I feel like, on the podcast, and how that can benefit in the room. And to have a practice partner like Gary Day Armin in that wrestling room, I'm sure is helping him out also. So it's pretty cool to see him, a freshman that you didn't really hear of, come in and, shake some things up right off the bat. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, clearly learning a thing or two about work and practice habits and just the ingredients are there. He's probably just, I don't know if there's a real signature win on his resume yet, but there's a bunch of guys that are, they just need that one last piece before you can really start to envision them being on a district podium or whatever. They just need that one win, and I think he's kind of that win away from sort of reaching new heights. But seems pretty clear that his ascent is just kind of at the beginning stages here.
It definitely is. And, like you said, I'm looking at his wins right now. I have them all written down. He does have a major decision over Cale Harder from Ambo Cleona, who not a lot of people have heard of yet, but he's a very solid wrestler. He just slipped into my district rankings. And he does have a win over Braylon Corder, a Central Mountain, who was a district 5th place in that district in AAA. That kid's pretty solid, and he's a junior. So yeah, his wins, those are just two that stood out to me. He has proven to beating kids that are on a level of, districts, regional. So yeah, those are 2 wins, but yeah, he's looking pretty good.
All right, we mentioned Cobin Carper earlier, senior now at 138 pounds, back at 138 pounds where he was last year. Looking pretty good so far for his last ride. He's 15-1. He was 20-5 last season. Certainly had some high notes last year, and he's offered a lot of reasons to this point to be excited about how much more potential he has that he hasn't shown yet. And in this case, I think he's off to his best start yet. He was in the finals at Trojan Wars. Only lost there to Dom Fendora, the state medalist, a 4th place from Downingtown West in the finals. That score was 10-8. Wrestled up at 145. He beat Tucker Seidel from West Perry. He beat Keaton Fisher at 145 pounds at the Carlisle Holiday Classic. So a couple nice wins there, up in weight. I think with Cobin, you see the upside, you see the potential. It's starting to hit the mat a little bit. The last piece for him will now be to peak in the postseason. We saw flashes last year when he beat Connor Brown from Littlestown last year, but then he regressed a little bit, and I think maybe a victim of bad placement, at regionals, and just kind of didn't wrestle his best in that last tournament. So that's the last piece, I think, is for him to make that final leap and to be this good all throughout the postseason too, and maintain that confidence and belief and that swagger that's helped him get this far, because he is, I think a better wrestler than his postseason results would indicate.
Yeah, he has been, he's not, the word to describe him right now is dominant. He looks it too. He's quick, he's scrambling, he's powerful. Like he just looks the part right now. Everything about him looks dominant. Like you said, his loss to Fendora 10-8, great match, Trojan War finals. He's on that level now. Fendora is a guy that, I think if he went and won a state title or made the state finals, I would not be very surprised. So he's proven to be on that level. And, he did it with a second period tech fall over Bryson Neidig at York Suburban, who's a regional qualifier. And, an almost major decision 9-2 over Keaton Fisher, Conestoga Valley, and 14-2 major decision over Seidel from West Perry. He just looks very polished. He's on a mission. Like you said, on a normal year, he would have been a state qualifier, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to go back, double check that. Weird year last year. But that was also a loaded weight class last year with Connor Brown, Justice Hockenberry, Guilfoyle from Bishop McDevitt, just in the district, and Kyle Vernon from Hamburg was there, Grant Kaufman from Newport. So that was a loaded district bracket. But no, right now he's on a different level. I think he's a guy that, he could absolutely win even a state title, and he just looks that good right now.
And I think it's always been there. I think the key for him, again, will be to maintain that attacking form, to wrestle with aggression, and to stay in that mode where he's wrestling to go take wins as opposed to prevent losses. And it's like, that weight was tough anyway. And then, so often, sectionals, districts, regionals, super regionals, you see the same faces over and over and over again. So if it's like a coin flip kind of match, and you saw this at a few different weights last year, if it's a coin flip type of match, which I would say Cobin Carper and Connor Brown was kind of like that, It's just the last wrestler to win that coin flip match is usually the one who moves on to states. And, you can't really control the timing of that. It's just been, last year was especially tough with that extra stage in there too.
It really was, yeah. But yeah, Cobin's looking really good. I'm excited to watch him more over the next couple of weeks here, with the regular season we got left. So
I'm looking forward to. We're sitting here on a Wednesday. I'll be seeing Cobin and Boiling Springs wrestle Shippensburg on Thursday. I wanted to go get a look at Don Frontino, who's fresh back in the Shippensburg lineup, and I'm hoping to catch Michael Dugan wrestle Don Frontino. I think both coaches will be game for that matchup, so I'm excited to see that. Here's a guy that you should be familiar with, Kaden Clark, your senior from Northern Lebanon, 15-7, but some of your guys in particular, but especially Caden, just battle tested for those 22 bouts so far. Long kid, made the drop after the holidays from 52 to 45. How much better is he at 45 than 52, where that length and his kind of savvy can help him win matches?
Yeah, Caden right now, he looks good at 145. He looks healthy at 145. And he looks very big for 145. You don't see many 45 pounders that are 6'4". So but Caden, yeah, I mean Caden, he does have 7 losses right now. At Northern Lebanon, we're blessed right now to wrestle the schedule that we do. A tough hurricane tournament, King of the Mountain tournament. Travel to Virginia Duels tomorrow, wrestle some nationally ranked teams. So, but he has some key wins over 2 AAA guys I had ranked in the state. Ryan Laporte of Springford, who I had 19 at the time, and Zach Borzio from Quakertown, who I had 11 at the time. He beat them back to back at Hurricane. He's been scoring a lot of points off of his defense. He looks very, very comfortable right now in scrambling positions. He's one of those kids that it's hard, as one of his coaches, and not just a coach, I've known him forever, he's my cousin, but he's one of those kids where he will get into a scramble position and you kind of just have to stop coaching because he's so flexible and he just kind of does whatever it takes to not get taken down. It's necessarily not all the time. It's like a key reattack or something. It's just something weird that he'll do and you can't really coach it. You can't really coach flexibility. And some kids just have that. And but he's battling some very tough kids. He battled Parrish McFarland this past weekend at Pottsville Duels, who's ranked pretty high in the state AAA. He's looking really good. He's been a very, very pleasant surprise for us right now. And I hope he keeps it up.
Kind of has flown under the radar a bit, but you saw a lot of improvement last year. And then, I wrote a story for PennLive just about him wrestling the 50 matches in that 1 week of camp. So it's like, if he's seasoned, in a competitive sense, and he has worked like crazy even since last year. So you think, with all this seasoning this year too, with wrestling a bunch of tough matches, he'll be better for it in the long run. Ganon Smith from Newport is a guy, I talked to him last week too. He looks like a different kid now, and he looks like a different kid because he has worked like crazy in the weight room and gotten a lot stronger. And because he's gotten a lot stronger, he's more confident in different positions. He's more open to taking some risks because he can kind of muscle his way out of sticky situations if he needs to. And it's that strength that obviously helps you finish your shots and push back opponents' shots and all that, but also just changes who you are. And I think that's changed him as a wrestler. And what you've seen are big time results. It started at the Perry County tournament when he beat Justice Hockenberry Folk. It continued in a big way at the Carlisle Holiday Classic the next week. Pinned Michael Dugan, that was the highlight. He was beating Michael Dugan at the time. He also came back to beat Jake Cherry in a 14-11 match in the semifinals there at Carlisle. And then Mason Steiner from Central Bucks East, he shut him out in the finals there. So a pretty good run at Carlisle, but also before that. And this is a kid a couple years ago was 106 pounds and qualifying for states at that weight class as a freshman. Now it's all come kind of full circle, and he looks legitimate as a 160 pounder, super strong.
He really does. He's another one kind of piggybacking off what I said about Cobin Carper. He is just the definition of dominant right now. And that's rare to see, when you talk about him being 106 2 years ago. I believe he went 106, 113. Then he did make a little bit of a jump to 145. You could tell he was getting used to the bigger weight classes. I mean, he still looked pretty good, no doubt about that, but he's not what he is now. Right now, it clicked. He's filled out. He's so strong. And he's one kid, I love watching him on top. He's very dominant on top. He's very good with legs. He pounds on kids. He's just a brute, man. He's looked so good. I don't know who they have coming up, maybe that he will get to wrestle. I mean, Team Districts is coming up pretty shortly, so I'm sure he'll hit some of those guys again, like Justice or Michael Dugan, someone along those lines, maybe one of the kids from McDevitt. So we'll get to see that. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about him. Like you already said about his Carlisle tournament, was one of the best performances I've seen this year out of a District 3 kid. Looks very good right now.
Definite contender. I mean, he said his goal was to win states. I mean, crazier things have happened, I'm sure, with the way that his form looks at this point. One more name to throw out there who kind of the same category as Ganon Smith, where it's not like you had doubts about how good he was, but Jagger Gray from Trinity as a junior at 172. Remember, he wrestled 189 last year, wasn't fully comfortable at that weight, probably didn't belong at that weight in a perfect world. So now he's down at 172, where he looks very strong. He beat Garrett Garcia of Southern Columbia in the finals at Trojan Wars a couple weeks ago. He beat Kevin Oliveria from Manheim Township, super athletic kid, beat him in a tiebreaker. I think 4-3 was the final score. And, I think his belief in himself is well-founded, and, his ability is clear, and he works as hard as anybody. All that stuff has been true, and you saw some ability, but I do think that he was a kid who needed these types of wins, at least one of them, to jumpstart something bigger and to really turn the corner in his own confidence and feeling like he can go out there and dominate. I think that's what we're starting to see from him, is really in the process of jumping levels.
Yes, for sure. And he was one kid, he was a freshman at 170. He took third at districts that year. He competed very close to states. And last year was a weird year. He would have been at regionals, but, like you said, he probably should have been at a weight lower. Trinity was very loaded from that like 160 to 215, 189, whatever it was. They were very loaded. So the kids and the weights kind of shook up a little bit. But when you see kids at bigger weights as freshmen and sophomores, and you see them competing at the district and regional level, that more than likely they're going to end up panning out. And for Jagger, he was a kid that I saw all off season. Anytime Virginia Beach or Disney. I mean, Disney, I actually got to watch him wrestle. I believe he wrestled for Team Nallman, if I'm not mistaken, and he didn't lose a match. He was like the first team AAU All-American down at Disney. He looked very dominant. So he's been putting in the work, and now he's looks good at his weight class. Like looks healthy. And like you said, he looks very dominant. He has a win over Kevin Oliveria, Manheim Township, who is very, very good, who I had ranked very high in the state, still do. So yeah, it's clicking for him now, I feel like, and I think, we're just going to continue to see improvements from him.
So all these guys, pieces are coming together. We mentioned 9 wrestlers in all. We've started to see, results match their ability. And these are all guys to watch as we start to creep closer towards that team postseason and towards the individual postseason, more importantly. Hunter Wallace from Keystone Caliber will be joining us here. I think in a week or two, we'll shift from individuals, which we've done so far, before the season and now, into maybe looking at the District 3 team field, because you got some interesting dynamics on both sides. You've got pretty wide open race in AAA. You've got, your McDevitt, Boiling Springs, West Perry trifecta. You got you guys in the mix, Northern Lebanon, Newport trying to bring a young lineup along and to try to get that experience and try to make a little bit of noise there too. So it should be a fun race. We'll look at that next week. But for now, appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. Big thanks again to Hunter Wallace from Keystone Caliber for joining us. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe and download all episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, or iHeartRadio. And we'll see you next time on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast.